Hello and welcome to Edwin 247, the podcast and the mouthpiece of Radical Love Online Church. My name is Edwin, your host. Thank you so much for stopping by. Today, kind of continuing from what we touched on last week, which is the importance of listening. And among other things which I might like to add to this is the importance of listening and learning the lessons. Such is life. We grow up, we are natured to walk and at least conduct ourselves in a certain way. And so we grow up, we are weaned off, we leave our parents' houses, assuming you grow up in a nature, rather in a setup of a family like that, and you have to stand on your own feet and run what lays ahead until, of course, the idea of reproduction comes into play and you parent children as well. But there are certain things that, unless you learn the lesson and master them, you might otherwise be repeating the same thing and you might not necessarily get to your destiny, largely because of the absence of listening. Now, we are created of God, and so if we have to get things right here on earth, it's important that we listen from our Maker. Case in point, way before we were conceived in our mother's womb, the very first of the children of God, the Israelites, under the guidance of Moses, they wandered in the desert instead of having taken a shortcut to the promised land, which could have taken a couple of weeks. Instead, they were in the desert for 40 years. There were certain lessons and certain attributes of them as individuals, as a people, that needed to be cut off, to be refined, to be shed off, and to be molded into a certain type of people. And when you read in the book of Exodus, you would notice that because some could not learn certain lessons and at least master them, they did not even, after having been shown or at least being told that across there, that is the promised land, they did not make it into the promised land because they did not learn or master certain things. The same thing could be happening to you and could be happening to you in a manner you might not have seen it or at least thought it through. If you are earning a certain amount of money, it's important that you live within your means and at least try and manage things so that you can have some spared for rainy days. And in so doing as well, when you practice saving, primarily coming from learning to live within your means, you always have at least a little to spare. And with that, you will then be able to practice certain key fundamentals that you don't necessarily have to be on your knees all the time praying over. There is nothing wrong with praying over everything, but the discipline of looking after what is given to you is one key indicator that you are becoming mature in your very own life. Notice this: when you are earning under $100 and you are earning over $5,000 on a certain period, there are different key fundamentals that one should practice within those earning ranges. It doesn't matter where. Somebody who survives under $10 a day could be having and battling issues which might in proportion be the same with somebody who's got $1 million in a bank account and is having sleepless nights. The differences might just be the locations, but the stress and the pressure around managing of money will always come to be the same. Where am I going with this? It is important that while you are in your lane and you learn to listen, God will always show you and speak to you over things that you need to refrain from. Guys with a lot of money to spend tend to get caught up in extramarital affairs where the budgets to run the main household is usually a bit skewed because you need to try and put a lot more extra to look after the second or the third, or all of those other small houses out there. Somebody who's earning a relatively medium-sized income in any economy might be living in an estate or a place where they don't quite fit in, but for purposes of fitting in within a certain clique, or you want to promote a certain image, you stretch your budget, go live in that particular neighborhood, and go and get a vehicle which is mortgaged for some reason. And all you then find yourself living through from every check to another is you have to cater for your bills, which include where you are staying, the rentals, the vehicle you're driving, the places where you find yourself spending some nice time. Before you know it, you have way under 10% of the original check that you got at the end of a particular working period. You can draw the same margin right down to the person who is not staying in a particular place but is wearing clothes of a particular label for purposes of standing out in a certain framework of the society. You probably have not listened enough. You need to stay in your lane, run your race, and manage what is at your disposal. Only then will you be trusted with things that goes beyond. If not, you can be trusted with more. Now, I'm not saying God cannot wake a miracle and the next morning you wake up, you have everything you have never imagined of. But usually what happens is when wealth and riches come your way and you're not mature in managing what you have at the moment, that kind of wealth usually takes people down the wrong path, because money, wealth usually magnifies who you already are. You will see people running into certain places, doing certain, practicing certain things which are somewhat unheard of, otherwise embarrassing of the family, embarrassing of the people who care the most about them the moment they get a lot of money. It's not because that was not in them, it just was not visible to many because there was not as much muscle in the wallet to demonstrate to the full potential who they really are. I'm urging you today, notice this. You might find yourself 40 years or even more going around the same mountain. God is not punishing you. He wants you to learn certain things. And the only way you can learn those is when you listen. So it's important to make time to pray and listen, because God, the Holy Spirit, is a gentleman. He's not going to scream at you. He's going to speak in the softest of voices. So it's important to do that. Case in point, yet again, we look at David. He was a young boy, probably under 15 years old, when Samuel, who listened to the Lord speaking, was assigned a particular task to go and find the next king of the time. But it took listening that he got to know that, hey, when he got to this particular place, to the family, and looked at all of these children that had been set before him by David's father, it took listening that no, these children who are here are not the ones. Until, of course, the young man came forth, and in so doing, the right candidate, which of course took something between 15 to otherwise 20 years for David to become a king, because he also had to undergo certain situations, which was part of training, which was part of refining the caliber a king, the children of God of the time, needed to have. So as another point of encouragement to you, like I posted online with the people who are part of the WhatsApp group where we fellowship, if not I send out some encouraging messages every day. You're not alone. in whatever valley you find yourself in whatever cave you have run into because you're afraid of the pressure of what's out there and what life is throwing at you. You are not alone. God is always there with you, and He allows certain things to happen, not because He hates you, but what He is making, or rather is allowing to come your way, is designed to strengthen you in a certain way. So it is important that you pray and listen. And in any situation you find yourself in, give thanks to God, and otherwise ask Him, what is it that you want me to learn from this situation you have presented yourself in? My boss at work has all of a sudden become very ruthless, somewhat unkind toward me. God, what is it that you want me to learn so that I don't go around this mountain and spend 40 years, and after 40 years I don't get nothing? After 40 years, I don't appear to see what it is that I was going around with this. Samuel did the same. He listened to the Lord, and that's how David was identified. First Samuel chapter 16 verse 7 says, "But the Lord said to Samuel, do not consider his appearance or his heart, for I have rejected him." The Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. So here, as my parting gift for you from me, from the Lord, over what we have today is, listen from the heart. God is going to speak to you, and everything that He plans in your heart for you to do, for you to exercise, to prune, to let go, to cultivate in your life, it has got a benefit which you might not immediately realize. But as you refine and you immerse yourself under the guidance of the Lord, when you listen to Him, because He speaks to you, He speaks to the heart, you will be the next best man, the next best woman your family would have ever imagined. And they will come to know the Lord because you have been obedient through listening, learning, and mastering the lessons that life has directed towards you. And nothing happens to you by chance. God makes everything happen for a reason, of course, and for the glory of God. And you too shall benefit from them.